All right, welcome back to Kanell and Bell. We led the show with it, unknown what would happen to Drew Brees with his thumb issue that he had. We have breaking news, though. Ian Rappaport has reported that Drew Brees has a torn ligament in his throwing thumb, and he's going to require surgery. Sources tell him the time frame depends on the surgery, but it's likely 6 weeks. That's the initial estimate. The next step, according to Ian Rappaport, is for Drew Brees to decide who is going to do the surgery and what procedure he'll do. That could alter the time frame, but Teddy Bridgewater is the new starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. So devastating news to the New Orleans Saints, who really were pegging this season as, and there had to have been a sense of urgency around this club, realizing Drew Brees is getting up there. He's 40 years old. The window is closing rapidly. We were so close last year, got to the NFC Championship game, got it taken away from us because of a non-call. This year's our year. So they go back in this revenge game. Not only do they lose that game, which they had circled all offseason, but now they lose their franchise quarterback, future Hall of Famer Drew Brees. And I still feel like this 6-week window is probably a little bit optimistic.
It's a lot optimistic. So those are really interesting injuries. Like you've been there. You see him on the sideline. You know, even like if it's a half hour after the injury happens and he's still on the sideline, there's still adrenaline coursing. So when he's trying to grab that ball and he can't pick it up, that's best case scenario. Because at night, after that plane ride back the next morning, that thing is going to be on fire, right? So, I mean, because when I tore up my wrist, Danny, the next morning I thought I lost my hand. Like, I was like, what the heck is going on in my hand? At that point, I got to go see I need to know what my options are, right? So then you get to that point. Mine was cut and dry. There's one surgery or you don't have the surgery. When you hear the wording, he has to opt what type of procedure he's got to have, there's uncertainty around that. The nature of the statement is uncertain, right? Like, you could elect to have one that maybe costs you 6 weeks. If you need to have it restructured and, you know, there's screws in there and you got to hold it down with something else, you don't know how long he'll be out. Best case scenario, 6 weeks for Drew Brees. And then the question becomes, how quickly can you guys close ranks, realize that this is a different animal that you're working with, still maybe same goal, but it's going to be a different path to get there, and players and coaches have to come up with a new game plan because you can't do it the way you thought you were going to do it now.
Right.
You can't. You have to figure out what the new roadmap is to the desired destination.
I think one of the, if you're looking for a silver lining in this, is the fact that you do have Teddy Bridgewater as your backup, an established guy who started meaningful games in the NFL. And I know he didn't play great yesterday coming off the bench, but I'm telling you, in that spot, that team in the game that meant that much to them, when you lose Drew Brees, it is a major gut check, and it knocks the wind out of you, and I don't think the team recovered from it during the game, Teddy Bridgewater included. I guarantee you it's one of those things where, what do NFL coaches say all the time? We hate distractions, distractions, distractions.
Sure.
That was one massive distraction. Players on the sideline probably looking over and watching Drew Brees trying to throw it, saying, oh my gosh, what just happened? Did we just lose him? How long do you think he's going to be out? Is he out this game? All that conversation on both sides of the ball. It affects the defense because they're looking.
For your non-professional, like, athlete that's sitting there at home, to hear you say, looking over at Drew, like seeing if he can throw the ball, they don't even understand that in and of itself is a distraction.
Right.
Not even the fact that, oh my God, he can't throw it. The fact that you're taking time out of whatever's going on to look over there to see if Drew is okay, already at 80% of your mental capacity, because 20% is given up to like looking at Drew Brees. Do you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
That final line. My hope for them, and you said a silver lining, they're playing the NFC South, right? Tampa Bay sitting at 1-1. Their only victories against 0-2 Panthers, who are also in the division, and the Falcons. You know, who knows what they are right now. So if it's 6 weeks, Teddy keeps it afloat. Now, Teddy, I need you to look better. Like, so I need you to get those reps with the ones, dial into the game plan. If they have hopes, he's going to have to look better than he did yesterday. But I will second your silver lining with that. They're in the NFC South. Maybe they stay afloat.
Teddy Bridgewater's not going to have any sort of like grace period, especially with the way the schedule unfolds. He's got to go play in one of the toughest environments to play in Seattle. Then they're playing against the best team in the NFC right now, the Dallas Cowboys. Granted, they get them at home. Tampa, you get a breather. I think that's a very winnable game. Jacksonville's a little bit of a mess so far at this point. Then you go on the road to Chicago. where it's, again, one of the best defenses in the league. And then you got a home game against the Arizona Cardinals. You should win that game. Sitting at 1-1, if you could get them 4-2, which I do think is realistic if you're Teddy Bridgewater, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that big a deal. Now, again, it goes to how long is this injury. I think the one thing that has helped, and you mentioned it, their division, which we thought was going to be one of the toughest in the NFL. And I know Atlanta got the win last night against the Eagles. They didn't exactly look like world beaters, but Carolina is a disaster all of a sudden. They're, wait, what are we going to do with Cam Newton? What does our future hold? That's the one saving grace, besides Teddy Bridgewater being there, is that the schedule is manageable. And it's sort of like the Patriots, and it's kind of funny because they're in a position similar with an older quarterback. All you want is a seat at the table in the playoffs.
Sure.
Like, you just don't want a missed opportunity where the season is a wash. And this is why they signed Teddy Bridgewater and gave him a really nice contract as a backup quarterback. And it's also why Teddy Bridgewater didn't go to Miami or anywhere else where he might have had an opportunity. This is the succession plan. This is the guy who's supposed to take over the franchise once Drew Brees, and who knows when it was going to happen. But when Drew Brees is done, this is Sean Payton saying to Teddy Bridgewater, hey, this was going to be your team. So they have a lot of confidence in him. And the other good thing, Michael Thomas is still there.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara is still there. Ted Ginn is still there. They still have some weapons to work with. They're going to have to utilize them. This will put a lot more stress on everybody else to give Teddy Bridgewater some more help.
Let me ask you a question. Hypothetical scenario.
Yeah.
All right. Let's say Teddy Bridgewater is exactly what they thought he would be, and he is the succession plan for Drew Brees. Let's say Drew Brees, it takes him longer than the 6 weeks, right? And you've got Teddy Bridgewater sitting at 11-4 or 10-3, and Drew Brees is ready to come back. What do you do?
Right. That's your best case scenario.
No, it's a great problem to have.
And I'm almost sure that Drew Brees, maybe Joey can search this real. I think he did a 2-year deal, and this is the second year of his deal.
Yeah.
So contractually, because he's a free agent after this season.
Right.
And I think Drew Brees is the type of guy too. But this is the bigger question. I think he's probably looking at, hey, he's got to be aware of his age. Now, I know they've all said Tom Brady and Drew Brees want to play till they're 45. Yeah, that's great in philosophy, but in reality, sometimes your body tells you when it's time to hang it up. That becomes a conversation where not only is it a tough decision for the Saints, I think it's a really tough decision for Drew Brees.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he feels like coming into the season, I got a chance, and he looked great in that crazy comeback the other night against the Texans.
Sure.
But at some point, he's got to start looking at his own career and saying, man, and injuries put things in a whole nother light. All of a sudden, you start looking at yourself, you realize you're human, you're realizing, hey, I can't play this game forever. But that to you, obviously, there's no best case scenario when you're talking about Drew Brees and his injury, potentially ending his career this way. But if Teddy Bridgewater goes out there and balls out, I think it gives him a lot more certainty about that plan. But I still think if he plays great, you're still bringing back Drew Brees.
You're bringing back.
Yeah, if he's healthy. But again, a quarterback who has made his career on accuracy and throwing the football into tight windows, and throwing the football is such, it's such a fine line between being accurate and not.
Yeah.
If you're talking a couple inches here or there, and a lot of it's with your throwing hand. This is not his non-throwing hand. This is what he makes his living with. It can have a major impact on his play.
I'll show you again. This is the thumb not repaired. That's the thumb not repaired, okay? Where it just goes all the way behind your hand. I've also had the wrist reconstructed. Now, it's not a thumb, but you're casted and you're immobilized. The atrophy that takes place in that hand happens really, really fast, right?
Yeah.
And so then when you come back and you start doing your manual therapy to get that strength back, when you're talking about you maybe 6 weeks out, there's no telling what that hand looks like when it comes out of the cast. Mine came out, and it wasn't anywhere near where they thought it would be. So then mine wound up being a 4-month, 5-month, I still wasn't playing basketball when they had projected more like 3 months,
Right.
So you never really know how fluid a thing that is with Drew when he comes out of a cast. And to your point, if that's the playoffs and you rely on accuracy, and you've got that situation if you're the Saints, that's one where, you've got to be real as a player. Drew has to be real and sit back and say, what can I, realistically, am I better than Teddy at this point?
Right.
And I got to do what's best for the team.
He's going to imagine he's better.
I know, but that's a hard conversation.
Yep.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Am I better? Mine. Am I better than Gordon Hayward right now?
Right.
Am I? Gordon Hayward was my rook, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, probably not. You know what I mean? Like when push comes to shove, probably not. That kid's better than me. Like that's a hard realization to come to, especially when you're Drew Brees and you didn't see that coming. I saw it coming.
Right.
Like, they drafted him. Like they had sat me for a while, then they played me for a while. When you're rolling out there thinking you're winning a Super Bowl and boom, you hurt your thumb, like that's tough.
Well, another really tough discussion, and you have you have to have a lot of trust with the doctors that you're dealing with.
Right.
Is Drew Brees saw his hand specialist. He's trying to determine the course of action that he wants to take. You want to get back as fast as you can, but there's going to be some risk if you come back earlier. Or, and this is where Drew Brees, how long does he want to play? They can say, we can get you back for next season. And that's a really tough, or you're going to miss 8 weeks or 10 weeks, but you're going to be fine moving forward,
right,
as opposed to maybe you can be back in 6 weeks, a little bit more risk there, and it might affect you long term. It's just, I can't only imagine the discussions that are taking place right now between Drew Brees, the doctors, and Sean Payton and the Saints organization trying to make this decision of the course of action, which is going to impact Drew Brees' career potentially, and Saints' season,
Saints' opportunity to win championships. Those are much tougher conversations in the middle of a championship, at least in your estimation, a championship window.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be tough for that one. We'll keep you updated on that one, and of course, keep it right here at CBS Sports HQ. We'll keep you up to date on that. The breaking news of that at the top of the hour. Ben Roethlisberger. If there's anything to break out of Pittsburgh, make sure you stay tuned to CBS Sports HQ. Right here at our network. We'll get you up to date on that. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to finish off the show with some leftovers next on Kanell and Bell.